Hello, my beautiful peeps. Welcome back to A Nurse in the Kitchen. This is your friend, your nurse, Chef Maggie, and I'm here with another series. I'm going to start another series today. Can you believe it? All right, last week we showed you the wraps. So this week it's time for our nurse chat. And remember, our purpose with A Nurse in the Kitchen is not only to teach you how to cook, to enjoy preparing healthy, fun, tasty meals, but to also help you combat nurse burnout. Because if we are in this profession, I am determined that we should stay in it. There are circumstances that would force us to leave the profession, but the burnout rate is so real and it's so common in not just nursing, but in healthcare in general, that our sole purpose really is to help you enjoy what you do and stick to it. So our last series was about nursing supervision. So today I wanted to start a series on civility. Civility is a word that some of you may not be familiar with, but it has pretty strong bearing in what we do, because as you know, nursing is all about empathy and caring and healing and nurturing. But the environment that we find ourselves in sometimes makes it difficult. I wouldn't say impossible, because to me nothing is impossible. But I think it's going to be like a 3-part series. I remember the supervision, I said 3, I ended up with 4. So you never know where it's going to take us. Civility is a term that has been used in the public square. Usually it's talked about in terms of the political arena, whether how people interact with each other on a social level. If we talk about social level, think about nursing. That's all we do. We deal with patients, we deal with families, we deal with co-workers, we deal with vendors. You have to be a social person. And that was one of the traits that in my one video, if you recall, I mentioned that I think it's important that if you want to be a nurse, you have to kind of like people. If you are antisocial, you're going to have a really hard time. Why did I choose the topic of civility? I have noticed in the practice, in the environment that I practice in, that what is happening in the public square has a bearing on what's happening in the healthcare arena. Of course, we're social beings, we're human beings. If we are dealing with some issues on a social level, it's going to manifest itself in our practice. That's a given. How then do we get those skills that we need, keeping in mind that what's happening in the public square is that, but how can we get those skills that we need to deal with it in our practice? Because we deal with people, and it's just like literature, in the music, the movies, they're all a reflection of what's happening, in life in general. What I have noticed, and managers will tell you the same, there is an increased number of, I wouldn't say complaints, but concerns from patients, families about maybe a lack of civility. And I don't want to say empathy yet, because that's another subject that I would like to talk to you about, the subject of empathy in nursing, which is so central to what we do, and a lack thereof that we are noticing as well. So civility is described as a formal politeness in behavior and speech. Politeness, being polite. I'm not used to, I always say that when I'm dealing with nurses and maybe new trainees or new nurses or whoever, I can teach you how to put an IV. I can teach you how to put a wound vac on. I cannot teach you to have empathy for your patient. I cannot teach you to be kind. I cannot teach you to be responsible. I can't teach you to be civil. Those are the things that you come to a job with. Those are the skills, the personality traits that you inherit from your environment, from your home life, from the social setting that you grew up in. And you and I both know that there are some people who are kind of lacking in that area. Okay? I remember there was a teacher, we met her at some kind of gathering, and my son was there. And then he said, "Oh, these are your parents? Oh, I knew he had good parents." Well, so to speak, which is meaning that the family influence is what shapes the child. So if your child, teachers are complimenting the child, they're really complimenting you, the parents, because you've spent years just feeding your child with those skills, those traits, those personality things that you want to equip them so they can become a decent human being in life. Okay? And most of us parents, we pride ourselves on that when our kids go out in the public square, they go out in the world, and they can function as decent adult. That is a feather in our cap, right? So civility, formal politeness. How are you polite? People would say it's please and thank you, but of course it goes beyond that. When you are polite, you carry yourself a certain way where you take into consideration someone else who is existing in your space. Now, of course, we all know what's going on in the public square nowadays. There is a lack of civility in our society, and it's spilling out into our workspace. I mean, you can't separate the two. That's a given. That's going to happen. Politeness, listening to someone, active listening, disagreeing without insulting that person. Okay? Politeness is also somebody does something to you, how you retaliate. Do you retaliate? How you respond to injustice is civility. Okay? And politeness. And the politeness is not just in behavior. Let's say you have a patient who is ranting and raving and just being really, really nasty, really mean to you. What is the civil thing to do? You stand there, knowing that this person may be under the influence of medication. They could be anxious, they could be depressed. There's a lot of things. And remember when I gave you that one talk and I said, when somebody does something to you, if you can attach the behavior to some kind of life circumstances, it gives you a way out. It gives you a level of, it equips you with a level of empathy where you say, well, she's having a bad day. Well, she's going through a lot. Maybe that's why she's acting that way. That way it takes the pressure off of you, so you don't feel like you have to give tit for tat, you have to retaliate, and you have to be angry. It calms your heart. And this is the thing about self-preservation that I talk to you a lot about. So the behavior, how you respond, how you act, how you carry yourself, how you interact, that's all civility. But typically, civility has been attached to civil, okay? Civility comes from the Latin word civilis, which means befitting a citizen. So that means this is what we expect the citizen, how you expect the citizen to carry themselves in a civil, polite way. Oh, God. We don't see a whole lot of that these days, do we? The reason I'm bringing it in is that your response to any situation is your responsibility. And I remember in one of the videos, I quoted Chuck Swindoll, but I quoted it backwards. And I said, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. I think I switched the numbers around a little bit. Because the responsibility is more on you, on how you respond. You choose how to respond. I choose how I respond to this patient and his behavior. I choose to respond I choose how I respond to this family member who's being totally inappropriate and unfair. That's the thing. Sometimes somebody may have a valid point and you apologize, but sometimes it's so far-fetched and so unfair and so untrue that the natural response is to defend yourself and be angry and be scandalized, and then your behavior, and it snowballs into something that you don't want it to be. All right? So keeping in mind what civility is. Civility means you carry yourself in a way that take into consideration the other person. In our public arena nowadays, we cannot have civil discourse. Everybody feels like everybody has to agree with you. I'm one person. I have my own opinion, and I don't apologize for having an opinion. But how I discuss my opinion, I can be civil, but I'm doing that. How I respond to your opinion, which may be different from mine, that's civility. Does that mean if somebody doesn't act like me, look like me, think like me, does that mean they are subhuman, they're alien? You know, all these words that get, tossed around nowadays. To say that there is a lack of civility in politics and in life in general, in these Americas, is an understatement. I mean, you hear it every single day. We hear it, we see it. How I want to approach it in the terms of healthcare is that regardless of what is happening in the public square, incivility or otherwise, we owe it to ourselves as professionals to check ourselves, to guard ourselves, to still maintain that level of politeness and civility in our behavior, in our speech, in our attitude, and how we carry ourselves. And I can tell you that if you do that, if you are intentional about it, this is the thing. I used to always tell my kids, you need to make a decision of how you're going to act before you're in that situation. This is a little skill. You can take it for yourself, or you can teach your kids the same thing. If somebody says to your kids, let's go smoke a joint, your kid would have had to make that decision way back when. Not when they're under pressure with 5, 10 hanging out and you want to fit in. Same thing in the workplace. I need to decide for myself how I'm going to carry myself, how I'm going to respond to situations before the situation arises. That's skill building. That is skill building. You're building yourself. You're giving yourself the tools. Small example. I moved down, south from up north, from the northeast. And then in the northeast, we don't say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. First time I heard, I'm like, ma'am, no. We call everybody auntie. We kiss everybody. This is my culture. But now everybody is yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Now, if I'm telling somebody yes, sir, it's not out of a feeling of incompetence or that I feel that I'm inferior. That's not the reason. It's just I have been intentional about practicing saying those words, and then they become a habit. So now it's a given. It's natural. Also, the other thing, we can do another class about customer service and how you respond. Same thing. I was intentional about when somebody says thank you to me, instead of saying you're welcome, which is fine, that to me was a little bit lame. So I thought maybe I would elevate that more, and I think I got that from a customer service class. So now when somebody says thank you, Maggie, I say it's my pleasure. So now if you with me at work or anywhere, you're going to hear me say it's my pleasure. Again, remember, 3 weeks for you to develop a habit. If you're intentional about saying something, acting a certain way, you're going to internalize those skills. And then it becomes natural, it becomes part of you. So let's agree to practice civility, being polite, being kind, in behavior and in speech. So next time when we meet again, we're going to translate these skills into the workplace. because boy, do we need to practice civility in the workplace. What's happening in the community, in society around us is, it's translated back into the workplace, where you have family members, patients who are very uncivil on how they act towards us. Hey, we are the caregivers, we are the practitioners, we are here to help you, but it doesn't matter, because they are human beings and they are a product of their environment and what's happening. I'm going to stop right here. I'd like you to, if you can go online, just look at that word civility and see what it means, and then make a decision that you are going to be a civil individual. I don't want to say person. Individual and practitioner and professional. It's going to make your life so much easier and going to reduce the likelihood that you're going to burn out and you're going to go off the handle and get ticked off at the little bit of thing, and just doing things to yourself that are not healthy for you. All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the short video. Next week we're going to be doing something cooking. So with school being out, I think I'm going to do a couple of snacks for family, for busy moms. So when the kids come home, you can have some healthy snacks for them, and not the chips and the sodas. No. We don't do that in Maggie's kitchen, right? Okay, good. So I hope you have a wonderful day, evening. As you could see, I'm in my workout outfit and I'm going to the gym. I hope you do the same thing. You keep laughing, keep smiling, keep loving life, because we do not know. Tomorrow is not promised. Okay, guys, it was so nice to chat with you today. God bless you. I love you. Au revoir. À la prochaine.